regular meeting of the Fairview Town Council. This time, Councilman Wilfong will have our invocation.
Let's go look there. First of all, once again, we thank you for the opportunity to be out and serve for the residents of Fairview, and also we appreciate the attention we're getting from the people from the planning and from the Chamber of Commerce in our town, and what we add to the works of Union County. We ask you for patience and guidance and in all that we say and do, and look after us until we make decisions that need to be made, and be open-minded. And when we do make a decision, we ask you to look after those who cannot be with us tonight. You look after those who are sick, those who are grieving, especially look after all those who fight for all the freedoms we enjoy. Thank you.
We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move to the agenda changes. I'd like to add item number 4, discuss approve a bid for the ditch recutting in the park. The Park Facility Committee has gotten 2 bids on that, and I'd like for us to discuss that. Are there any other agenda changes? Now I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I second.
All in favor? The motion carries. Teresa, do we have any public comments?
None.
Okay. Move to presentations. Pat Cale, President, CEO of the Union County Chamber of Commerce. I've gotten to know Pat over the last several years attending chamber functions, and we're very fortunate to have her leading our Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for all you do for businesses and for citizens of Union County.
Thank you, Mayor Thomas, and thank you, council members, for giving me time on your busy agenda. It's my pleasure to come and represent the Union County Chamber tonight and our board of directors. The Chamber's vision is that everyone who lives or does business here in Union County will enjoy a thriving local economy and an excellent quality of life. And we need partnerships for that. We are a nonprofit business association, one of the oldest. We've been in business for over 85 years. For the last 20 years, I'm very proud to say the town of Fairview has been a member and an investor in the Chamber. Investing in some of the work we do around workforce development, partnering with our local school system to prepare our students for future jobs right here in Union County. Along with that, we do work, of course, in public policy, women in business, leadership union, and many other programs. And the town's investment helps us do that work. So I'm here tonight with great pleasure and great pride to present to you a certificate acknowledging over 20 years that the town of Fairview has been a member of this chamber. You were established in 2002 and you joined your chamber in 2003. So if I may present this to you, Mayor Thomas, on behalf of the chamber, and want to thank you all for your membership. Thank you all for what you do for not only Fairview, but for Union County and the state of North Carolina. Oh, do we get photos? Oh, I'm so excited. Will you send me one? Sure. Thank you, and thank you so much. Appreciate all you do. Thank you so much. Good to see you, and thank you. It's good to see you. Glad to be here.
Our next presentation is from Bjorn Hansen, who's a senior planner with Union County on the critical intersection information. Bjorn, it's always good to have you here.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. While we're waiting on the projector to warm up, this is a informational update on the critical intersection program. We are about to go into a public comment period, or really public input period on our candidate list of intersections. So I'm going to talk about that. I'll also give you an update on work we did several years ago and where things stand, and just general transportation updates here in the county. So this thing is live.
It'll automatically focus.
Okay. Pretty fancy projector.
Go to
go to a single source. We're so fancy, we can't even operate.
All right, thank you. So, critical intersection program has been around since 2014, actually. We did our first list of projects, 15 identified intersections from throughout the county. That was completed in 2016. We were pretty successful, about 2/3 of them funded in less than 4 years. So we revisited that list and came up with a new list of 15. That was done in 2019. And the intersection here at 601 and Bree in town of Fairview was something that we went through, a lot of public engagement. You had to make a decision on what kind of design you wanted. Later on in that process, you had turn lanes, you had a roundabout. Roundabout was ultimately selected. That process in 2019, we've been successful, and about 2/3 of those intersections have since been funded. So now we're in our third round of analysis, and we're about to go to public engagement. We want to make sure that you're aware of that, because we're only successful if we get the word out to all the residents from throughout the county, and that involves all 14 municipalities. So, something we always present in towns or cities that have their own priorities, we want to make sure that we emphasize that this does not replace any local planning work. The municipalities or the DOT can have their own priorities that aren't necessarily on this list. This serves as a countywide list of priorities, and it's only our priority if it's your priority. So we would never identify a location or come up with a design that any municipalities agree with. Also, something that the DOT says either that's not a good idea or it's not feasible, because we're not in the road building business. We don't own any roads. We just help facilitate improvements. And so they weigh in as well. So any improvement, any identified intersection with a design is something that the county agrees with, that the town agrees with, and that the DOT agrees with. And then we move forward and try and get it funded. So what we're working on now, this process, we started in January. We meet monthly with our stakeholder team, and we're now in the month of March. We are still collecting data, particularly intersection data on counts and on crash information. And we are going to go out to public outreach in the month of April, and that's going to be a 30-day period. That's really why I'm presenting here today. We're going to collect that information as well as the NCDOT's crash information for the intersections. And then over the summer, we're going to whittle our list down, which is currently about 30 locations. We expect to find more through the public input period. And then we're going to whittle it down to 15. And for any affected municipalities, so we have a location that's being considered here in Fairview, as well as other communities. And if that project makes it onto the list, we're going to go back and ask for endorsement to say, do you want this to be included in our list of 15? If so, that list gets approved, and then that'll be complete by the month of September. And that's really important because the Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization is a key funding partner to help make these projects happen. And they do a solicitation every fall for new planning projects. And 3 times we have gone to them asking for money to design the intersections. That's how we were able to get the intersection of Brief and 601 designed as a roundabout with a cost estimate. We would do the same thing with some number of intersections this fall and get that money in 2024 to actually get them designed with our cost estimates for them. So we have a scoring matrix. It's pretty objective. Perfect project was 100 points. It was a nice round number. Since then, we've updated it. Now we would say that a perfect project is 115 points because the 2 rows at the bottom, multimodal improvements and constructability, are new attributes. Multimodal means that by building this intersection and the associated improvements, is it going to help the bicycle and pedestrian movements in the area? Not to say that we would build sidewalks and give points to a project if there's no sidewalks or destinations that it's connecting to. But say you're in downtown Monroe, you're in downtown Waxhaw, or Indian Trail for that matter, and you're helping improve the network and improve the safety for existing pedestrian activities, that would be a project that would score better because of that. Same with constructability. If you're familiar with 75 and Potter in downtown Mineral Springs, that is probably the most complex intersection I can think of for improvements. It has water and sewer lines right there on the right-of-way line. It has power lines. There's a Class 1 railroad 75 yards north of the intersection. You've got a gas station, a church, a historic building, and a shopping center all right there. So any improvements to that intersection is going to be very complicated and it's going to have impacts. Change that to an intersection out here in the more rural parts of the county where you have maybe farm fields on all four corners and no utilities. It's a lot easier to build. So constructability, you get more points on the right-hand side if there's nothing there that we need to worry about. We're just buying some raw land as opposed to we've got to knock down a building or move power lines or move utility lines. That would get 0 points because there's more of those complexities. We want to emphasize projects that are easier to build. Not to say that it's going to be the only variable. You have all these other things to consider like crash rates, traffic volume, growth pressure, truck traffic, congestion. So all of those things come into play. And we're scoring the projects and we expect to have this complete by June. So any questions about what I've gone through to this point?
Yeah, but maybe you can answer. We had the DOT came and talked to us last year. I guess that a brief in 601 and they were laying out the cost. And I think the roundabout was plus 2 million and then the
right.
turn lanes was plus 200,000. I asked the question, I said, at that time, maybe it's not true now, but at that time, I live on Lawyers Road and the DOT mows along part of my house. And they said they didn't have money to pay to mow, but they were going to spend 2 million on a roundabout and 260,000 on the turn lanes. I said, how come, what would it cost to put in a stoplight? And they said $100,000 plus dollars. I said, I don't understand why you wouldn't go with 100,000 if you're short on money. And they said there wasn't enough people killed there. No, it's not what they safety. So I just don't understand. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense to me.
Sure. Well, to start with the first question of mowing versus the capital improvements, DOT is almost a $6 billion organization. They have money for salaries, they have money for maintenance, they have money for capital improvements, and they have different pots and they have different budgets. So you could be building a $100 million roadway widening and run out of money for mowing the lawn. Both can happen. So that's the answer to that situation. Regarding the 601 in brief, the DOT does not put up signals anymore if they don't add turn lanes as a part of it. That's the reason why you have on 218 here, why you have multiple roundabouts that have been built and are being built, even in locations where there was a signal, because for safety considerations, if there aren't turn lanes to accommodate people, they don't have good outcomes. So if they don't have turn lanes as a part of it, it's not a preferred strategy for safety considerations. And the 601 in brief intersection was one of the top 15 back in 2019 because of safety. And we looked at, and the town evaluated turn lanes versus a roundabout and endorsed the roundabout concept because the turn lane project was adding turn lanes, adding the signal, but the benefits, it was not as safe as a roundabout. So that was the decision, that was the trade-off. A signal may cost $100,000, but the total life cycle is not $100,000 because, to use Air Force terminology, it's a roundabout is fire and forget. Whereas the signal, you've got to go back and maintain the timing on it, run power to it, replace the light bulbs periodically, and people will still periodically die at intersections. 601 is a high-speed corridor with a lot of 18-wheelers, and that's not a forgiving situation.
Well, that's why the lawyers in 601 that for the stoplight before you get a green light, you look both ways.
Yes, sir. And that's the situation. Roundabouts is very cynical, but roundabouts are kind of like the DOT memorial sign because you do have to have a crash history to justify those things.
And to clarify that is that I've always heard that not necessarily crash, but deaths at an intersection, does that play in the crash criteria? Or does that make a difference?
Absolutely, because what happens is for safety projects, there's a cost benefit ratio, and you have property damage, you have injuries, and then you have serious injuries or fatalities. A fatality is worth a lot more dollars than a property damage only. And so it's very cynical, it's kind of grim to say it, but a fatality will boost the cost benefit of doing a project.
One of the issues that I've seen going with the DOT, and I had this discussion with one of the DOT engineers at one of the critical intersection meetings a couple of years ago, is that you can look back at what you're talking about, the fatalities, the serious injuries, the dollar figures. But if that's the only thing you look at, then you're really missing the risk management part of it, which is to look ahead, look at the exposure rather than only at the past history of it. I spent 40 plus years in risk management, so that's why I'm concerned about that. You know, we can look backwards, but we don't want to wait till, you know, X number of people get killed in an intersection if we know it's a dangerous intersection to start with.
That is
Look at
correct.
the exposures.
The problem is, it's a matter of resources, because if you lower your threshold to potential, the universe of intersections grows exponentially. And we just don't have the money. And if we had the money, our threshold, and when I say we, I mean the state, I mean Union County, I mean the town of Fairview, I mean everyone collectively, if we committed more money, our threshold of funding projects would become that much lower. But with the amount of money that we have available, this is the best we can do. And I would say from a looking forward perspective, the fact that we include traffic volumes and that we include growth pressure, both are an indicator of future risks.
I think probably the most dangerous intersection we have in Fairview is not 601 and Bree, it's Unionville Bree and Highway 218.
I will bring up what is already funded, and I'm also going to bring up what's been identified as additional projects. And things may have changed since 4 years ago when 601 and Bree was identified. But this is the scoring matrix we're going to use. So before it was 100, now it's 115. The things that add to it, you've got the multimodal. I'll be honest, you're probably not going to get many points around here. But for constructability, if it's a more rural area, you might. The projects might be easier to build, and therefore it might score higher than one that's a lot more complex. So existing projects in Fairview, Lawyers and Indian Trail Fairview is a funded project. It's going to go to construction this year. 218 and Sykes Mill also going to construction this year. Just east of Fairview, 218 and Love Mill is going to be funded. There's going to be decided by CARPO literally tomorrow night at their board meeting on whether to include it in their next round of funded projects. So you have 2 on 218, and the reason why is because it's a dangerous corridor.
And lawyers, and is it lawyers in Mill Grove and lawyers at Emerald Lakes?
I have an interactive map with all of our funded locations. They may just not be happening in 23. And then 601 and Bree, it still exists as a priority for the county. If the town considers it a priority, it's a priority for the town. We have a design, but it's not funded. We have not cobbled together county and town money and DOT commitment to implement it, to submit it for consideration through the CARPO process, which is the most likely way to get something like that funded. So upcoming activities for our critical intersection program is that in, I guess 3 weeks from Thursday, we're going to be opening up the public comment period. It's going to go out for about a month. We have an interactive website. It's called MetroQuest. That's what we're using to educate and to collect input. We're going to be getting the word out through social media releases, sunshine lists. Any group such as this that wants to hear a presentation, we will go out and present. We are going to chew on the feedback and come up with recommendations through the summer. And then by August and September at the latest, we're going to be going for endorsement. And then from that, we're going to cull the list down to come up with some subset that we want to apply to CARPO for another funding grant to actually design and develop cost estimates for those intersections. So on this slideshow, and Ed has a copy of this, we have the link to our existing site with our existing list of intersections. We have an interactive map on the potential ones that we're evaluating right now, and then the data that we're using. It's all open source, public information, and CDOT traffic counts. They have interactive maps on crashes by intersection throughout the state, as well as severe and fatal, and then our MetroQuest site, which I'll now pull up. So, this map is of our funded intersections throughout the county, and it also, you can look at, our top 15 as well. And here's yours up here at 601 and Bree. So the funded intersections in Union County are on Lawyers Road. There's a bunch on Lawyers Road. I think 3 are going construction this year. So that's
Rocky River.
that's at Emerald Lake. So that's going to be a roundabout. You have at Mill Grove and Lawyers. That's a roundabout. You have Lawyers and Rocky River. That's a roundabout. You have Lawyers and Indian Trail Fairview. And that's a roundabout. So there's a lot of roundabouts coming on Lawyers Road.
Is there not one in Emerald Lake?
No, that was the one I mentioned first. And then this map is interactive. I manage it. So when CARPO, the board, makes their decision tomorrow night, and if they choose, which 99% sure is going to happen, if they choose to fund 218 in Love Mill, I'm going to put a dot on this map. So actually, I'm going to change the dot on this map because there already is one there. It's an all-way stop. But they didn't think the all-way stop was going to be effective enough, so they threw their hat in the ring for a roundabout. And that was selected, and that's the decision that they have tomorrow night.
In the construction of these roundabouts, like I live 300 yards from Indian Trail Fairview and Lawyers. How does that work? Will they block off Lawyers to do that, or will traffic continue to that intersection?
Generally, they shut it down and they go full bore for 8 to 10 weeks to finish it as soon as possible. It's just hard to keep traffic going when you're doing that because it's the whole geography of the.
Like in my case, I can come out my driveway and take a right and go.
You're probably going to be detoured. I can't tell you what the detour is.
Yeah, but probably back towards Middle area.
So yes, and generally they try and do them during the summer, especially when they're near schools, but roundabout is all encompassing. It's the intersection. So typically they just shut it down and go as fast as possible to be done with it. So this is a live map we host on our webpage. This is all the funded intersections. It also lists what our priorities are. And when this list is done in 6 months, we're going to add a new attribute, say 2023 critical list. So it'll be added. Not that it replaces the 2019 one, it just adds to it. Our list of intersections that we are evaluating, it's a little hard to see on this map, but up here in Fairview, the one we're looking at is Indian Trail Fairview and 218. Can't say what the design would be, can't even say it would make the list. Right now, we're at about 30 intersections. We want to get down to 15. We guarantee that the public are going to identify some additional ones to consider. So say it gets up to 40, we have to essentially pick the top third.
That's based on your matrix.
Well, the identification of it, anyone can identify one. The town council could identify one tonight and we put it on the list. But to get down to 15, you score them, and then there's a little bit of horse trading in terms of maybe a community says, like Monroe actually, I think has 5 within its town limits. They're all on the south side of downtown. They might say, we just can't absorb 5. We're not going to be able to commit this much match. Let's take the lowest scoring one out. And then some other one somewhere else pops onto the list. So that's where it negotiates a little bit. But that's the process we go through. It's data driven, and then when you get some tiebreakers, you essentially talk through it. And they're throughout the county. These different colors are indications of the crash rate. So greens are up to 1 crash per 1,000 daily traffic, and that's on an annualized basis over a 5-year period. The highest are scoring somewhere between 2 and 3 crashes per 1,000 AADT, and that's on Monroe Road, up here by Unionville. There's a couple on Newtown Road. Not to say those are going to score really well, we're just giving a little bit of thematic information. So this is what we're starting with. I guarantee the public are going to identify more for us to evaluate, and that's good. They're also going to help us validate a ranking process to tell us what to prioritize in terms of weighting safety versus congestion versus growth versus multimodal. And that's what we go through. And the adoption process is, it's really 3 parties. The DOT, from an engineer perspective, says, yeah, this is something that makes sense. The county says, yep, we like it, and the towns like it as well. And if everyone agrees, that becomes our list, and then we move forward with the design and cost estimation. So happy to take any feedback you may have. When this goes out, and the media release comes out in a few weeks, we hope that you push it out through your sunshine lists and try and get as many Fairview residents as possible to complete the survey.
How do you balance areas like the western part of the county that have a lot of population versus the eastern part of the county, or say Fairview, the northern part of the county, where if we encourage comments, we're probably not going to get nearly as many comments as, say, somebody in Marvin or Waxhaw or Indian Trail. Is that taken into consideration?
This is not mob rule. So just because 100 people comment doesn't necessarily mean that they can bully a project that may not have the objective statistics that one out here would actually do. If you look at this map of the funded intersections, the eastern part of the county is doing fine in terms of funded projects. So it comes down to the numbers. Now, 100 people talking about an intersection will certainly get us to evaluate it, then maybe we didn't think about it before, and that has happened, and I'm glad it does happen. But this ultimately comes down to the objective information, because because if we support a project that just doesn't have the merits, the DOT is not going to carry it forward. It has to be triple approval. But you can see from this list, there's quite a few projects in the northeastern part of the county.
Questions? I would like to see Unionville brief and 218 on that list.
Well,
There's a lot of people who are just avoiding the intersection because it is so dangerous. And if
It's-
you avoid it, then you don't have an accident.
well, and that's true, but that happens everywhere. Unfortunately, people are gonna find the best way they can to get around, both from a safety perspective and from a congestion perspective. People typically discount safety. They think that they're the best driver on the road. It's not going to happen to them, but we have one of the highest crash rates in the entire state, so it happens here. This is why we get a lot of intersection projects, is because a lot of our secondary roads are they're getting filled up with growth, and this is how we're trying to deal with it. But it's a partnership. I hope your intersection makes on the list as well, but to make these happen, it requires a commitment. The county has committed $1 million over the last 5 years to intersection projects. We've partnered with Monroe, Marvin, Weddington, Waxhaw on as well as the DOT, and getting them funded, and we look forward to trying to get more partnerships in the future. So thank you for your time, and again, I really hope that in a few weeks you beat the bushes to get people to complete the online tool. I didn't spend much time on this. This is actually what it looks like. I won't go through the whole thing, but it's 5 slides, and at the end we get some demographic data, so we would know, for example, if you're in Fairview, because you have the opportunity to select that, as well as your zip code, and if you want to participate and find out more in the future, you can put in your email address. So this is how we're collecting all the information.
Where's that website?
We're going to send out the link. This will have its own link, but it'll also be housed here on our critical intersection program webpage.
Okay.
And honestly, the best thing to do if you want to get to it, just Google Union County critical intersection. It'll come up. So again, thank you for your time, and look forward to working with you over the next few months.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
And I'll save a copy on here for as use if necessary.
Okay, we'll move to the consent agenda. There's nothing that anyone would like to pull off the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
All in favor? And consent agenda is approved. Move to items of business. Item number 1, approve the J.B. Watson audit contract. Darrell?
Jamie Watson's been doing our audit for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years. We work well with them, and I think the price is similar to what it was last year, so I recommend we approve.
Okay. And the only difference, the sheet that everyone has here was page 7 of the audit, and there was one minor change on that, so the motion to approve would include the new page number 7 as well. Any discussion on that? They'll entertain a motion to approve the J.B. Watson audit contract.
I move that we approve the J.B. Watson audit contract with the amended page 7.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries. Item number 2, discuss the town hall driveway and parking lot.
That is not as clear as it used to be.
No, it's not. I was noticing that. I was noticing that sitting back there, I couldn't see a thing, but. I was like, I gotta go get me some new glasses.
My glasses.
I'll have to work on that a little bit. Let me, start by saying the fire department, of course, is gonna be starting here in a couple weeks, we hope. The property, as you know, is split in two all the way to the road. And they have elected to put the fire trucks or the fire truck bay in the middle of the two buildings. So beside us will be a fire truck bay, the garage with the fire trucks in. They have elected to keep that area down to the road clear of any parking. So we have our parking, they have theirs. Heretofore, we have used all of that pavement area for parking, if we want to. Now we can't do that. Or we can't, because we can't park in front of the fire trucks. Now we can go around to the parking of the fire department and park if we could walk over here. And that may be an option. I had Doug Buchanan at my request to him to come up with an ideal plan of using our front of our building for parking. And he did this with no cost to us. He just did it in a favor to come up with what we probably should do or should think about in the future. And I have got this. Can I put this on a bigger screen?
You have to zoom,
I have to what?
you just be able to zoom in.
You're trying to get it.
You were good? Yes?
Yeah. Write that down. There was a span.
Anyway,
We've got hours in our back of here, we can get here.
I'll make it a little bit bigger, but it won't make it come down as long.
You'll just have to.
Okay.
We
So I'll
got
move that. It'll work. Well, I don't want it. I don't want to put it upside down.
Now it looks sideways.
You look sideways. I wasn't looking sideways to start with.
You
You may
This
not
is
have been.
sideways, isn't it?
No.
They've got it in their pack.
Yeah.
Okay, since we got all this worked out, I'll ask him to draw a plan of what it should be, probably, if we wanted to have adequate parking for the next 10 years, 15 years. Quickly, I found out after talking to a contractor, how much this would cost if you included all the parking places. Here's your 601 over here. Here's your building over there. So you would drive in here, park here, drive around, park some in the front, and park over here to the side. Here's the property line. And that includes the handicap places that we need, and probably the reconstruction of, this walkway would have probably be reconstructed because it is not sloped properly for handicap. $75,000 plus engineering fees. It's hard to spend that much money and have this much parking when normally there's 2 cars here, mine and Teresa's, for most days. However, we have had parking where it was everywhere because we had 100 people. So that's the dilemma. So I said, well, let's go to plan B, and here is my plan B. This is going to be necessary. This area right in here, and you can imagine this area right here, right over here. You're looking at the building. This area is going to have to be. We're going to have handicap places and an easy entrance into the building. That's for now and in the future. What I liked about this particular plan was he took away the grass at the front over here and made parking places all the way down a little bit in the grass area. I like that because that's less grass to mow, and probably gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which on any normal day would be our parking or meet the needs of our parking. Any other day, we would not have this if we were expecting a big crowd, and probably we will have. What I would recommend is we put a sign up here that says parking in the rear of the building, additional parking in the rear. So they're gonna park all the way up, they're gonna park on the grass anyway, but we can have additional parking in the rear where we can undo the fence or the gate back there, have them come into that back area back there, and fix it to where they can come in back of the building through the gateway, through the other door. We could probably park, what, 50 back there, Bill? Well, I don't know.
I don't know if we parked that.
30 maybe?
We parked a lot of them.
Yeah. That and parking on the grass, it would probably be both, then if we had a bunch of people and there were some parking places over at the fire department, we could certainly use those, you know.
We know how many parking places they're gonna have at the fire department.
Bill, I can't think of it right offhand. We negotiated, they were to have 90 per our ordinance, which was way too many. So we settled on something that I cannot remember the amount. But they're gonna have parking in the front and back.
A couple of things I see on here that we've had issues down at American Legion over handicap. And like, for example, here they show the parking spot that the area in between the two. The only way that'll work, that's your plan, one of those, that, you have to have access to a van parking in that spot. So that person would have to back you.
See this?
Now, right there, look right there.
Right.
For that, the way it works, the way it's laid out there, one of those vehicles will have to back in as opposed to pulling. Little stuff like, plus that sidewalk is 4 feet wide, in our case, that's gotta be 5 feet wide. Little things like that, he just did a rough sketch.
Right, and they're not, and that's what I'm gonna ask you in a minute. If we could take some more property here too.
Yeah.
So the plan B would be to hire an engineering firm to do that much in relation to this and see how that would work. Draw it to scale, construction drawing, and then I can bid it. Then we can go out for bid and do just that much. Leave the rest of it just like it is. Jerry asked me, what were these? They're trees in the future. We may not see them of that size, but, we should plant them probably, I don't know. But anyway, leave the rest of it as it is. What I'm asking you tonight is to maybe think about, if you want to do it tonight, give me the authority to go get a contract from, I would suggest Concord Engineering. They're the one doing the fire station here, so it might work out to where I could have somebody understand theirs and ours at the same place. See how much they would charge to do this and bring back the contract.
Was there a fee for them to look at it? Make suggestions?
I don't know. Oh, well, yeah.
If we would hire them to do the work, then yeah, there would be.
Now, I would sure share that with them. I mean, just say, here's our thoughts. They may come up with their thoughts. And there's some parking, of course, right here on the side of the building. Here. 2 or 3 places. So,
In short term, we can always unlock that gate and use that back area. Or
as long as I can
get
get
some additional lighting back there.
we can get some lighting underneath the canopy that walks back down, I think that needs to be done, and also some lights, and it wouldn't take a couple of lights in that parking lot. I gotta get with John to take all these stuff underneath, or Spencer, to get her stuff out from underneath the awning.
And that's another thing, where to put it. If we were to move it,
That's the reason we pay you the big bucks.
and they go in my house.
But that is an issue. We got some things that.
They won't fit through the door. So that's why they're underneath the awning, because we can't get them through the
That ties
doors.
in the discussion we had last meeting, or the retreat over the old fire department. That may play in our future too, where we could put it there. So we can work that out.
It wouldn't come in the building anymore. It has to stay outside. But that in the concession stand building, a little bit, that we haven't used. I want to check that yet. There is some stuff in there. So, this is just a seed that we need to plant and look forward to in the future. We're gonna have to have it. We're gonna have to have a few parking places here. The mayor wants one here. And this is my car, and this is Bruce's car. But go ahead and do that, maybe while they're doing their parking lot, and get it done at the same time. Maybe the same contract. We are gonna have to fix, there is a little, where's the drainage, where's the little
Water line.
cut that we made,
Trench is a better word.
trench, whatever, we're gonna have to get that fixed.
Yeah.
Did get a quote for $2,300 to asphalt. I thought that was a little high, but I don't know what asphalt costs and for a little strip like that.
I think if Gary's willing to help, then we can fix that with concrete. It'd be cheaper to get a yard and a half of concrete.
Anything would be,
A lot cheaper.
if we had enough people here to smooth it out, yeah. It wouldn't need much.
We don't have to get it real smooth.
Have to dig it out a little bit.
You want to square up the bottom of it. And we can take that, whatever we dig out, and dump it out here in this hole. So they're gonna have to fill that in anyway.
We have the town council and all the staff do handprints and
Yeah.
I think that would be appropriate.
You're using that term "we" awful. I don't know who you talk about, Kiyosaki. I don't get out on my hands and knees like the country.
We got some knee pads.
Okay. Whatever you think.
That won't be a problem. If I can get 1 or 2 people to get up and look, we'll knock that
I
out.
talked to Matt, and he said he can use some software. Find out availability and time.
Okay.
That's solve it. Unless you want to make a motion to go ahead and get a contract on that part of it.
Why don't you talk to them and just get a ballpark idea of what they would charge us to do that?
That's why I just asked.
Permission, you want permission to do that? That's what you're asking for?
No, I want permission to get a contract.
Get a contract.
Y'all haven't approved it yet. We want to see how much it would cost.
For the engineering part?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think we need a motion for that.
I don't think so. I just want to make sure you knew what to do.
Yeah, that's fine. I think you can show them what you've got there and say, ballpark, what would it take us, what would it take you
I think so.
to design this for us? There might be some slope issues too. I looked at that real close.
For what?
Slope issues.
Yeah, yeah. They're right here.
It's 2%.
Here's right here.
Yeah, right there.
Here. And Tim Huntley said that wasn't sloped correctly. The wrong way. If you came out this way, that had to be sloped. But if you can't leave that alone if you do this project, you've got to include that. You have to bring everything up to code.
Right. Okay.
I'll see what I can do.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item number 3, discuss approve setting up a park capital fund. In our workshop a couple of weeks ago, we talked about cutting off the house from the rest of the park property. That has been done. I thought Jerry had a good idea on that several months ago. Is if we ever apply for another part of grant, they want to make sure that the entire property is tied up. And so we thought it made sense to do that. Jerry and I did go over there and mark corners, and it has been surveyed and has been sent to the registry of deeds. So it's actually 2 separate plots now. The house on 3.3 acres, and then the rest of the park property on 60-some acres. But when we were talking about setting up a park capital fund, I thought that it made sense to take the rental income from the house and the rental income from the farm and just put that into a park capital fund and use that only for capital needs at the park, not for maintenance. And over a period of years, that could turn out to be a fair amount of money. So I'm going to throw that out and see what your thoughts were on that.
And until I talked this afternoon, I made a comment, if we're gonna do that, why don't we just take the rental fee off the shelter and have that go in there as well towards capital improvements? Would that be a problem?
No. Any rental fees?
The rental fees, but yeah.
Any.
Huh?
Any.
Yeah, any.
Except the festival.
Festivals, yeah. I mean, I don't know how much money we're taking in now, but that would be something.
We don't take much other than the shelter, but
Right.
there may be something.
I would think the shelter, or the festival fees ought to offset the festival cost rather than going into a capital fund. But just my thoughts on that. Tricia, what are your thoughts?
I think it's a good idea to go this route. I hadn't thought about the shelter fees and all that sort of thing.
You're talking about $2,600 maybe shelter fees a year.
I mean, sometimes it's 25 to 35 it's been over the
The
years.
farm fee this year was about 5,000, which was unusual, but it won't be that every year.
Probably
And
closer
of course,
to
the house
2
rent.
to 3 most years.
The house rent would be, 15 to 18.
Yeah, roughly 15.
That gives you about $22,000 a year that you could accumulate or spend as you wanted to, anytime you wanted to.
You need a motion?
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we use the rental from the house, plus any rental fees not associated with festivals, go towards the capital fund, towards capital improvements in the park.
Do you have a motion for a second?
I second.
Any further discussion?
Is that effective today or when will it be effective?
I'd say just make it effective
That,
today.
effective today. That's fine with you.
Make it easier on you,
Well, yeah, that's what
not
I was asking.
retroactive.
Yeah.
So you have a motion and a second. Agree with that? Okay. All in favor? And motion carries. We'll move to council comments. Tricia, do you have anything?
Okay, one more on the ads, number 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. Number 4,
Tree bids.
the tree bids. The Park Facilities Committee has gotten 2 bids on removing dead trees in the park. One was 14,000, one was 6,600. What I would like to do, I'd like to get a 3rd bid to see if we could get it done cheaper than 6,600. To me, that still seems fairly high. But what I was thinking was that if we can get a bid cheaper than 6,600 to authorize that, if we can't find a bid cheaper than that to authorize the 6,600, because they are wanting to get this done before the Easter egg hunt. There are a couple of trees that are kind of dangerous that we need to go ahead and get.
Based on personal experience, you're not gonna get it cheaper, 6,600.
Agreed.
Well, worth a shot.
Who did you go to? Just curious.
Who did I go to? Oh, who are the two?
Yeah.
David Smith,
Yes, he's the one that was
Cheapest.
600, yeah.
and I don't know who the 14,000.
It was, somebody Penny Love had used Robinson Tree.
I know, people across from me, Secure Turf, they did work for us, and they didn't do the amount of work they did. Their bid was 3,800, and they took out 4 trees and chipped it up and then cleaned off several other trees. It was 3,800. And this, for instance, so a lot more than what's being done at the park. The way I saw it marked,
Yeah, there's,
I don't think you're gonna get, I mean, you could, but with the liability issue and stuff, I think you need to.
What about Kuiper Tree and or Gene Hill's brother? Didn't
I have no idea.
Tree?
I'm not sure about that, brother. I know Gene's done some work for us before, but I'm not sure if he's insured or not. Plus, he's got health issues now too.
Yeah.
You don't know if you don't ask.
Yeah.
But Eddie Kuiper Tree, I know he's insured. But I'll check it in.
I mean, we may not find a bid cheaper than 6,600, but I would like to get at least 3 bids on it. And if we don't find anything less than 6,600, then what I would ask for is to authorize the 6,600 so we can get it cleaned up before the Easter egg hunt.
That gives you, what, about 2 weeks?
yeah, I don't even know if now they can get somebody, but they were gonna try to get somebody before then. If possible.
You need a motion?
Yeah.
I guess make a motion that we seek a 3rd quote for the removal of trees on the park property, and if unsuccessful, getting a quote for less than 6,600 that the be authorized to sign a contract for that individual to take care of the tree work. Does that make sense?
For 6,600. Okay, I have a motion for a second.
I second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. Teresa, will you get with Mike and see if we can get that done?
Can I ask another quick question?
Sure.
You ready for the comment first?
Yeah.
Question, when we met with the Duke Power people, I don't know when the lights, I don't know when that starts,
We already got an invoice.
okay? But the question, the question I want to ask is, there's 2 parts of that, the beginning, the lighting around the park, but also the committee would like to have outlets around the lake or the pond, whatever you want to call it. They can't do that, but what they can do is put up a meter somewhere close to that. They would put that in, and we do that work ourselves, and Mike was gonna look into, you gonna do that?
I have not heard back from Mike.
So we need to find out if that's an option, and they will do it they'll put it up, we'll have the electrician do it. So we need to find out about that when they start, because they'll need to be in conjunction with their work. Want to comment?
Has that bill been paid yet, Darryl?
We paid tonight,
Okay.
19,000.
I signed a check for 19.
You gotta pay attention. Yeah.
And we need to get back with you, Power, and find out when they're gonna start, so we can get a locate company out there. We'll have to get a private locate, make sure that we don't, cut any lines. I think there may be a power line that crosses where they're going. Okay, Tricia, you have anything?
Teresa and I worked together on going through park rules with a fine tooth comb, which I think we did. Do you have any feedback from the
Oh, they looked at it
facilities?
Thursday night and said it looked great, and they did go ahead and, they recommended to y'all. I told them probably it would be on the April meeting.
Maybe a bigger sign that they fixing the park rules. The people can't,
We
everybody
don't have a
can't
big enough sign.
see. That's what I'm saying.
I don't think it makes a difference, people can't read it,
No,
or won't
they
read it.
won't. But, yeah. But they did approve it. Or they recommended that,
I think that's all.
Gary? Lisa? Daryl?
Yes, I do. At our last meeting, there was several public here discussing the pros and cons of hogs on people's property, as you remember. We had a young man who got up and of course apologized for any inconvenience he caused to anybody. There was still an issue with the people that attended. They thought that hogs were going to be in their backyard and the smell was going to be atrocious and all this stuff. So the next Thursday, I went to see the guy who has the problem. Toured his house, toured his lot, sent him a memo to state exactly where he could have animals and couldn't. I think it was a hobby farm to start with, so I don't think he's really interested. In fact, he told me he'd lost money on the deal. So he's narrowing down his animals as we speak. So to say that I don't think it's going to be a problem in the future. The main next door neighbor who was leading the charge came to me a few minutes before the meeting and said that the two neighbors now have agreed to handshake and talk, which before they weren't. So he didn't think the problem was going to be ongoing. So he wanted me to sort of update y'all on it. And, excuse me, and the new code enforcement company we hired, the two that they've worked on have done a great job. So I'll just tell you that too.
Spencer, you have anything?
April the 1st from 10 to 12 is our Easter festival.
Okay. I only have one thing. I'd asked Teresa to forward an email from Todd Johnson, who's our North Carolina senator. And basically he sends out an email each week on what's transpired during that week in the General Assembly, both in the Senate and in the House. So I'm going to ask Teresa going forward to forward that to the council members so that everybody will be up to date on what's going on in the General Assembly. That's all I have, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
All in favor? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.
John, where's Chris?